In episode 5, we get a backstory on Nell, who in the first night in the Hill House was visited by the broken neck lady, and she flips out. Now, her parents just think it's a nightmare, but it's not. And even a week later, she's still having these visions to the point where she doesn't want to sleep in the room anymore. And that's the night where she slept on the couch and her mom slept on the floor. Her mom is wearing this locket that Nell, right before she goes to bed, asks if she can one day have. And she says, yes, one day I'll give it to you, but you know what? I'll let you have it tonight. And the locket features a picture of Nell and Luke in it. So Nell falls asleep, her mom is on the floor, but eventually during the night, her mom wakes up and goes to her own bedroom, and that's when the woman with the broken neck visits Nell. And when she does, Nell is frozen. She can't move at all. And this sleep paralysis continues with her through adulthood. A few days later, while snooping around, Nell finds a tea set that she brings to Mrs. Dudley and asks if she can keep. And Mrs. Dudley thinks she knows who the tea set belongs to, and that's Jacqueline Hill, the daughter of Hazel Hill, who Mrs. Dudley took care of in her dying years, which just so happened to be the same room that Theodora said, this is a sick bed. Well, Mrs. Dudley says, yeah, if it's all right with your mom, you can have it. So an excited Nell goes downstairs to start washing it out because it's very dusty. But Olivia enters the room and she's pissed off because somebody has written Nell on the wall. And of course she thinks that Nell wrote it. And Nell is categorically denying that she did this, but it's pretty damning evidence. And the only person that actually believes her is Theodora. So when Theodora walks in, she said she didn't do it. But this is stressing out Olivia, who's having one of the onset migraines. So she demands that Nell and Theodora clean it up, and she walks off. And Theodora can't understand what the big deal is because they're just going to tear down the wall anyway. And when she goes to pull off some more of the wallpaper, she's freaked out because it doesn't just say Nell. It says, come home, Nell. And when she tears off the wallpaper, she reveals the come home part. Theodora also touches the wall and knows for a fact that Nell didn't draw it. And finally, their last night in the Hill House, the kids are taken to a motel, and their dad drops them off and says, I'm going to go back and try to get mom. So after he leaves, the kids start discussing what exactly happened. And Luke is saying, we were having a tea party in the red room, which to their knowledge was locked. But Luke also claims that he was having a tea party with mom. And that's when Nell says, Luke, that wasn't mom. But eventually all the kids go to bed except Nell, who waits up for her dad. And her dad finally arrives in the wee hours of the morning, covered in blood. Nell says, did you find mom? And he said, yeah, I found her. She's better now. At this point, the cops have arrived, and he says, I need to go talk to them. Your aunt should be here soon. And this is the same aunt that all the kids went to go live with once this thing ended. She says, when? Because when you went to the house, you said it wouldn't take too long, and that took forever. So Hugh gives her a pocket watch and says, when this thing turns 2 o'clock, that's when your aunt should be here. And fast forward to present day where Nell still has that pocket watch, but she also has the sleep paralysis. So she goes to a doctor to try to figure out what she can do about stopping it, and that's where she meets her future husband, who is really the first person to actually listen to her problems with this sleep paralysis and not just chalk it up to too much TV. They end up going out for coffee, falling in love, getting married, and ever since he came into her life, the lady with the broken neck hasn't shown up. Really, the freakiest thing that happened to her was she saw her mother for a brief second at her wedding. That all changes, however, 8 months after they get married when she has another sleep paralysis attack, and her husband gets up to try to help her out, but all of a sudden, his neck violently jerks to the right and he drops dead. Now, to the doctors, it's nothing more than a brain aneurysm. But to Nell, she's convinced it's the broken neck lady because that night she saw the broken neck lady. And this really does a number on Nell. She's having trouble sleeping, and she starts going to a new doctor who doesn't really believe any of her claims. In fact, Theodora thinks he's a quack. He prescribes her a bunch of new pills to take, but none of them are really working. And on top of all that, she's dealing with Luke, who wants her to take him to a treatment center, but before she drops him off, he wants her to go get him heroin because he doesn't want to go into the treatment center on withdrawal. And Nell is really torn about this, but she reluctantly does it and drops him off. Theodora arrives shortly after to kind of just be with her sister, who's still grieving the death of her husband. But when she learns that she bought Luke heroin, she gets pretty pissed off. She gets even more pissed off when Nell wants her to use her powers to see if her dead husband is still in the room. Theodora agrees to touch a pillow, but she gets nothing. Then Nell wants her to touch the spot where he died. And Theodora doesn't want to do it, so Nell grabs her hand and forces her to touch the spot. And that's when Theodora flips out on her and says, I'm not a parlor trick. I came here to spend time with my sister. Look, he's dead. It sucks, but we have to move on. And this really just goes back to nobody believing the twins when they make these allegations. So Nell is on edge, still going to see her new psychologist, but she's also thrown out her medication. She's not taking it. And because of this, she goes to confront Steven at a book reading he's doing. And in front of all of his customers, she demands to know why is it that he writes about this stuff that he doesn't even believe and that he ridiculed her about for years. Steven gets pissed off because she just embarrassed him in front of all of these customers. And he also notices that she's acting way different, like she's not taking her medication. The other person who's noticed this is her new psychologist, who also wants to know why she's so scared of a building. I mean, it's been abandoned for 26 years. Nobody's in it. What's there to be really scared of? So she starts thinking about this, starts thinking about Theodora's invitation to go move out east again, even though she doesn't want to do that because she wants to be there for Luke when he gets out of treatment. But since Luke is in treatment, she decides to book a flight for Massachusetts. And when she arrives, she decides to stay in the motel that the kids stayed in the night they left Hill House. And she's even brought the pocket watch with her. And that first night, as she's sleeping, all of a sudden she has another sleep paralysis attack. But this time, instead of the woman with the broken neck, she sees Luke above her in really rough shape. And that's what prompts her to call her brothers and sisters and say she thinks there's something wrong with Luke, even though he just got his 90-day chip. Later that day, she goes to the vending machine at the motel to get a bottle of water, and she's once again visited by the broken neck woman, who disappears as quickly as she arrived. She rushes back to her room, and she just kind of sits there frozen. Next thing you know, she snaps out of it, but it's 1 a.m. And she was planning on visiting the Hill House during the day, but the day kind of got away from her, so she figures, all right, let's just go now. So she drives to the Hill House, and that's when she calls her father about the woman with the broken neck. But as she's talking to him, the lights in the house go on, and the porch light starts blinking twice, which was their mother's indication to come home. And that's what really freaks her out. So Nell enters the Hill House, but it's just like she imagined it when she was a kid, to the point where her mom, her dad, her brothers and sisters are all there as kids. And they're addressing Nell, saying things like, "Where have you been? We've been waiting for you. It's almost bedtime." And then she's once again brought to her mother, who is writing on the wall, "Welcome" for "Welcome Home, Nell," in the same spot that Nell allegedly wrote on. And Nell says, I didn't do that. Her mom says, I know you didn't. I know you didn't the whole time. But go in my room and grab a dress. They're all waiting for you. And when Nell walks downstairs, it's her entire bridal party, and this time, the kids have all grown up. They're all apologizing to her for never believing her, but unlike her original wedding, Luke has arrived. And right behind Luke is her dead husband. She starts dancing with her dead husband, but in reality, she's just dancing with nobody in a dilapidated house. And everybody's watching them dance. Her mother, her father, her brothers, her sisters, the Dudleys, and even the Hills. Eventually, though, she kisses her husband and her husband disappears. Then she sees Abigail, Luke's imaginary/ghost friend, Luke, and their mother, who say, let's go have a tea party, and they're heading up to the Red Room. So Nell walks up the staircase, and she's looking at these ropes that Olivia had told Hugh to take down because, quote, you're begging for a child to be hanging from that thing. And as she's holding the rope and looking down at her husband, who's on the bottom floor, her mom comes and puts the locket around her neck. But all of a sudden, the locket turns to a noose, and now she's on the outside of the staircase. And then her mom says, it's time for you to wake up, sweetheart, kisses her on the forehead, and Nell falls, breaking her neck and dying. But when she does this, you also learn that it was actually Nell the whole time who was the broken neck lady. Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.